So, first of all, thank you both so much. I'm actually annoyed at myself for interrupting, being part of this interruption of the performance. It was such an enjoyable experience. I think I speak on behalf of everybody in the audience. And, you know, I was thinking before coming into this, you know, how do we segue into this discussion part, but part of the enjoyment came from the way you infused the performance with so many such rich contextual commentary, and you created so many interesting threads there that I'm just going to pick up on a few of those to dive into the conversation. And not just the things that you said you'd talk about later, I'll answer some of the other threads. So first, I mean, you both spoke to, during this, the intimacy of music and the power of music, Hanna, you talked about when you're both were performing in Tarshiha, how the social life there is constructed around music. So I'd love to hear from both of you your thoughts as to, is there something specific about music to you, whether music itself or the arts in general, that is ripe for bridge building, as opposed to any other shared activity that a Jewish and Arab citizen of Israel might be engaged in together? Udi, looks like
you had many things to say later. This is okay, fine, I'll start. Well, it's very personal, obviously, because I think that how we build bridges, how we participate individually in building bridges is trying to contribute the best of us. And why is it an individual matter? I know that for me, maybe I've experienced a number of things in my life, professionally and through the arts and in person, in relationships, and but the music, the connection with music from a very early age for me was on such a deep level that I think that performing music, listening to music for me is the best segue and the best point of departure for any type of conversation, any type of effort to understand other people, because it's on a deeper level than any other thing that I've ever experienced. And I always believe that on a deeper level we connect much more than on the surface in general as humans. And so for me it's actually a very simple process. Music supplies me with the tools to go deeper, and when I go deeper I can connect with others better, and then the bridges become possible, even though bridges are above the ground. But this is it's an internal bridge in a sense. That
absolutely, thank you. Hanna.
Well, it's very interesting because growing up in Israel, in the north, I'm from as I said, a small village in Galilee, and just growing up, I studied the Western musical tradition. I used to take violin lessons once a week. I would go to Tel Aviv, and I would study with a violin teacher there, Russian Jewish who immigrated, and then basically every summer I would be spending time in summer camps performing the Western musical tradition. In the confines of of the village, you have an entirely different soundscape, and it's very much rooted in the Arab music that we commonly refer to as the golden age of Arab music. So when we speak about bridging, the first step is trying to really come up with a formula that is artistically draws on both musical traditions, so that when people in my village listen to Udi, of course they connected with that music, and when we perform here or when we perform in Tel Aviv, also the audience connected with the music, and that's partly because we're taking really some musical elements that are shared throughout the region, musical elements that we respond to. How many of you like falafel here? So we did a lot of falafel tonight. We added a lot of these spices that make up the region. And sometimes we even forget that, even the majority, of the Jews inside Israel, they also brought our culture. Those who came from North Africa and the Middle East, and they were very, very active participants in the making of Arab arts and culture. So Layla Murad is one of the greatest diva that I grew up listening to her music. My parents, it's actually my mother's favorite. And, she was Jewish, in Egypt. So, we also have to remember that, when we talk about these two different musical, it's not like a white and black type of thing. It's more of there is a lot of friction that happened throughout history that informed each of these musics. And just by drawing first on these musical aesthetics, I think we are able to reach, that to enter into that intimate space. That's one. And second, by entering into that intimate space, immediately you're accepted. And I can speak about that, from, now I will tell actually the story as I will tell about. When Udi came to Tarshiha, few people, raised the issue of boycotting the concert. They wanted to boycott the concert because they felt that, why is Hanna bringing a Jewish ear into the heart of the village? Why is he performing 16 years later? He's coming here, his first concert in the village that we've been waiting for, and you're bringing a Jewish, Israeli, and with a TV, are you trying to send some messages? And I can only say that there was nothing mentioned in the media when we announced the concert. Nothing about peace, nothing about these sort of ideals that are in practice. They are not there yet. It was just a matter of getting Udi to come and perform. And when people realize that there is none of that, messages and propaganda, basically Udi came in, he performed. They saw him as a musician first and foremost. And the next day people were asking, when are you going to do another concert? I remember a lot of the people who were calling to boycott the concert, after the concert itself, they came and they congratulated Udi, and maybe you can even speak a little bit about that. So, by really entering into that, he was able to create through music, connect with an audience, and that was the start. Now, of course, saying that by doing that, tomorrow Abu Mazen and Bibi Netanyahu will sit and make peace, maybe it is far-fetched, right? Or with the inside Israel. But the first step, of course, is getting the communities together on that personal level, which is, I feel, has been lost since the time that I left, since the,
Udi, could you react from your experience of that, but also I'd be interested in hearing the contrast, if it was a contrast. So you also mentioned that you performed both on the same trip, I think, for some soldiers from the IDF at Rabin Center. How was that experience? Did it mirror this one in many ways? Was there a different type of reaction?
Since we are on the theme of bridges, just to refer to the visit to Tarshiha, it provided me an opportunity to connect with an Arab audience. I think in the previous conversation we had, phone conversation, we prepared for this, by the way, so we had a brief conversation. I may have been, well, definitely the only Jewish person on stage. I think there were one or two other Jewish people in the audience. But I was provided with an opportunity to share my music with a room full of Arab residents of Tarshiha and connect with them and get to know them through the entire visit, which was a couple of days visit, which included food and walking around and meeting residents. And even though I have been living in this country for so many years, I had an opportunity as an Israeli Jewish person to connect on a level that most Israeli Jews, I believe, do not have that opportunity, because I do have a lot of connections, friends, relatives there, and I talk with them. So, and here I am, and I wish that experience would be multiplied on both sides. Of course, and then the other side, the other opportunity is for Hanna, as an Arab person, to perform for soldiers, which is, it's not an easy, the dynamics are not easy. Because as a soldier, and this is regardless of politics or anything, you're trained, you're not trained to think individually and develop your own independent ideas, and I think that's just the idea, that's just it's just being a soldier, in whatever country you serve. And I could see the reactions on the faces of the soldiers when Hanna was talking to them and playing for them, and he might have been, again, as we said before, might have been the first opportunity for them to hear an Arab and a Jew performing for soldiers in uniform. So that broke barriers. It certainly broke barriers. I know it made them think. So again, if you take that and you multiply the experience, you have a model that you can create for bringing the people closer together.
It's interesting because what you're suggesting, I can see how when you're performing up here, including with Hafiz, it's really, and this is something we had the chance to discuss a little bit, there's something very dialogical about the musical performance. There's definitely a conversation going on and with the improvisation and the engagement with each other. And so you get to see when watching that, the sort of the potential for the transformation among the musicians sharing that experience with each other. But then you start to think about the potential for how does that transformation experience transfer to the audience. And I wonder if that's something that you know it when you're seeing it, if you see it happen, if you feel it happen, and what your thoughts are about how you can take that very personal experience that the musicians share with each other and find a way to multiply it out into your respective communities or audiences.
Well, I think I just want to mention, just a note that, what we're doing here is really taking musical genres from around the world, but mostly we're focusing on the Middle East and trying to pair these compositions together and try to spin it and give, and try to, to give it in a different perspective, okay, like our own perspective. Now, there are other musical ensembles that started around the Oslo, at the beginning of the Oslo peace process. And like Mustan Abraham, I'm not sure if some of you have heard of that ensemble. It's and basically, for me, growing up listening to that ensemble, in addition to a couple others, it actually offered new meanings of what it meant for me to be in Israel and to be an Israeli citizen. And it basically offered the possibilities of a new soundscape that is inclusive of all, of the different, individuals, the different ethnic backgrounds, the different, and these sounds actually they became very, very famous. Unfortunately, after, later, the ensemble just couldn't sustain it in light of the growing BDS and movement and other events that are banning these sort of collaborative efforts. But for me, as someone who grew up in that region, that sound offered, a lot of possibilities and offered new meanings. And so of course, drawing on these, some of these compositions, drawing on, the music from the golden age of Arab music that I grew up listening to, in addition to the Israeli music. Of course, I developed my own sort of like vocabulary when it comes to making improvising. And when I shared the stage with Udi, of course, now this recipe can only happen when you're working with really great musicians. So, Udi is truly very, wonderful musician, very versatile. And same thing, I just want to say, Hafiz, he came in 6 times first in Syria in a national competition. The 7th time they took him out. So, I just wanted to put it in perspective. So, each one is coming and very capable. So, what Udi is able to do is speak, the harmonic language I'm not as comfortable with. he's able to provide, much of that sort of like backing. And by listening to each other, and by trying to sometimes match, sometimes listening and taking the sentence, so it almost comes like as a discussion. It's a discussion that's happening on the spot. So improvisation, just like, and I think there's a lot of listening, and there's a lot of, you participate, you're trying to actually put your voice so that it does not contradict entirely with what is being said, but you're trying to create that sort of medium. And I think it's a great recipe for to be implemented in other domains.
I mean, you definitely hear and feel that as an audience member. I wanted to give a chance to people in the audience if they have questions. I'd be interested actually to reflect, because I know I was thinking sitting in the audience, I was trying to abstract knowing the context. And you mentioned, that you've got world-class musicianship here, so the music on its own terms is powerful. But there's also power, obviously, to the context there of the identities you bring up here on the stage and the sharing with each other. And I was sort of trying to reflect on sort of how the experience would be different absent that sort of awareness. And it would be interesting to hear if others had that experience. But are there questions that are from people in the audience that they'd like to ask? I think there's a microphone.
Both of us, well, we come from the same geographical area. So it's already a natural connection, and I know that Hanna has played, as he described to you, with many Israeli musicians, Arab, Jewish musicians, and I had played with quite a few Arab musicians before I met Hanna, and then you moved to Philadelphia. You were in Philadelphia, and I don't remember exactly. I think it was 2006 when we got together the first time. So there is nothing earth-shaking about how we got together. I think it was just a gig, and it was a cross-cultural. I think it was cross-cultural event with a choir, a young choir, children choir from Israel, Peace Child. It was Peace Child, and they were looking to enhance the appearance of the chorus, which was an Arab Jewish chorus, young chorus, with an instrumental aspect. So Hanna and I, we were just, somebody match-made us together. And we felt immediately the contact. But I just want to say, it's not just to return a compliment, because you're speaking about bridges, and with your special affinity, of course with classical music that you were trained on, but also how you really push the limits when you play Arabic music. And then by us pairing together a lot of Arab and Jewish music or Israeli Arab, I don't even know what the labels are, but I think you know what I mean. We really create a new language in the process, and that new language allows all of us at least to hear each other, to understand each other, and if you try to translate it into verbal dialogue, doesn't necessarily have to be in context of agreement, but at least you hear the other. And hearing the other, at least for me, it's 60-70% of success of dialogue, which unfortunate, not to speak politics, has not been done yet well by almost anyone in the Middle East.
I think you can hear me well enough. So my question is, in Israel and in Palestine, is there an audience for you, your group? And if there is an audience, who are they?
Well, let me just say, if I go to the north and I put like 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 concerts in one weekend, I'll have them sold out. This is an audience primarily is the Arab audience, so be connecting with my career, and it's largely because being here in the States, I have also made a name as a performer of Arab music. I've collaborated with some of the most well-known musicians in the Arab world, and of course people are still sort of like are connecting always through internet. They're able to watch my videos, see my CDs. So in that sense, there is that connection, and every time I go there, I'm surprised with people telling me about performances that I have done that I can't even, remember. Of course, the fact that I have, performed, also with other world-class musicians and pop icons, whether they're Arab musicians or American, mainstream pop with Shakira, Beyonce, Shab Khalid, this is like a dream for most musicians over there. So of course, by de facto, I have, established an audience base up in the north in Galilee. But also, so when I went there, in 2 days, the concert was sold out with Udi, it was, despite, the fact that people were, talking even or considering boycotting the concert, it still was, sold out in 2 days. So I maybe Udi can.
You played with Shakira.
Yes,
It was a little bragging, but that's But your question is very good, because as Hanna was answering, I was thinking about your question. And our last tour of October is an example, it's a small example, because we played to 6-7 different audiences. Now I can say for sure, because of the work and the collaborations and the contacts that I've had in the last 20 years with Israelis, Jews and Arabs who work for peace. There is an enormous segment of society there that is working for peace. Unfortunately, they may be the silent majority. So when we play for Neve Shalom, Wahata Salam, Oasis for Peace, we play for children. They have done tremendous work in the last, how many years? They work for peace. That's audience for what we do. When we played in Abu Ghosh, the Arab village, that's audience for what we do. We play for Rabin Center. Rabin Center's mission is about bringing the people together. That's our audience. We played for Tarshiha, and as Hanna said, we were offered to play a tour of a number of Arab villages, and I'm sure that would have been sold out, what we will do hopefully soon. That's audience. When we played for the Arava Institute that is based near the Dead Sea, and they're dedicated to the environment, and they bring many Jordanians and Israelis and others as well together. That's audience. With the Jerusalem Youth Choir, which you heard here in DC a while back, that's audience. And it's not just them, it's the parents, it's the families, it's the supporters. When we were at the YMCA, we were hosted, the YMCA is basically managed and run by Arabs. And it was fantastic. I personally had a fantastic reception everywhere I went in October by Arab audiences, which is so sad for me that so many Jews do not have the opportunity to have that. So I feel privileged as a musician to be able to do that. We play for the drummers in Haifa, the young drummers, Arab and Jewish drummers, getting together. That's audience. There is great audience.
It's very important to just also stress, that these collaborative projects, are not, so unique and unheard of. I mean, it's a way of life over there. Like if you have come to the festival that they had in Tarshiha for 3 days, tens of thousands just stormed the village, and these were like Jews as well as Arabs. They're just coming to celebrate culture. The food, restaurants, the nightlife. There's a lot of sort of like a it's very much I would say people are just coming together in so many different ways, and it's meaningful and it's true. I mean, it's when people come to eat the food, come to the souk, to Tarshiha, the open market. I wish you just maybe we should bring footage next time, to just show how much there is together. Now, the only question for me remains is it's much easier for me as an Arab musician to work in Arab music because there is a little bit more of the discourse, the political discourse just is really shifted towards more like segregation, separation by de facto. But I would love to do more and more of this. It remains a question of whether we want this to become, the new discourse and like really have a dominant role in the public sphere, in the Israeli society, and the Arab community, and there are many different ways to push that, and I hope we'll be able to do that.
And the audience are also people who are looking for hope, because there are many of them that are looking for hope. And I hope that what we provide brings some hope.
Looks like we have a couple of questions over there.
Hi, wonderful concert, thank you very much. I have two questions. I love the story of Tarshiha and the idea that you would go home and people would assemble at various homes and people, whoever showed up with an instrument could play. No bonding kind of activity. That's the first question.
Okay. Well, some of the, it's funny because maybe in the last festival that we had in Tarshiha, as I said, they built this venue in the middle of really this a big, yard that we had. They turned it into like a 3,000 seat, venue. And out of the singers, I would say in the big events, 9 out of the 14 were actually female singers. There is a lot of, in fact, we can tell, there were a lot of female singers, and musicians. Yes, they're very much active participants in the learning, in the making of the culture. It's amazing. I mean, it's to see some of them, advance to such, levels and such extent, and making a name, not only within their communities but internationally. So, yes.
Thank you. Second question, very quickly. I'm interested in your techniques and the way you communicate with one another, the three of you on stage. How much is your performance improv on the stage and how much of it is rehearsed? It seems to me that there's a lot of eye contact, there's a little bit of room for riffing, but I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how you compose your music, how you start with the theme, develop the riffs, the changes, and I loved in particular the way you took a long drawn-out melody and then just exploded it in so many different directions. I thought it was great, particularly the energy. Thanks.
The rule is that there's no rule. There are no rules. I think the improvisational part of it is a huge part, and you really need to know your colleague on stage. Because again, you really develop a language. I mean, as you can see, much of what we do is based on written material, of course, but we stretch it. Yes, I could tell some of you recognize the meditation techniques that we played, and you were laughing. We were very hurt by that. You were actually wanting to be taken seriously. I thought it was a really cool thing, but you were laughing. But it's a language. It's a dialogue that is happening on stage. A lot of the creation, a lot of what we end up doing on stage is not on paper. It's not on paper, and that makes it, I hope, better, or special, or unique to us at least. Could be bad or good, I don't care, but it's unique to us. But we stretch the limits. Yeah.
I remember in one event, we had to perform with new musicians or a new band, and sometimes especially with our music, when I take the lead, I start doing these signs, in the performance. And I remember, the drummer and the musicians are what do you mean? What is this? So even these nuances and these little cues that we develop over time, we take it for granted. They are just part of, the language that happens, and that enables us to make whatever it is that we heard.
I'm just checking on, I don't know how much time we have.
One more question.
One more question? Okay. I'll let you decide who's going to bring the microphone.
Thank you. I'd like to ask something which may sound remote. conflicts, as I have seen quite often between individuals and groups, are a result of a threat that one feels to their identity. You're afraid that you lose your identity, and you would insist on preserving it. As I watch both of you as musicians, I want to know, do you feel threatened by adding to your repertoire, spiritual and musical, this intimate, more intimate knowledge of music? Do you feel threatened by that? The reason I'm asking it, I'm putting it in terms of you too, in order to understand what can be done more generally and explore ways in which more people in that region could communicate without threatening each other.
If I can just pick back that question to the answer, because I think it actually raises an interesting point, and one of the things I was thinking about, particularly when you mentioned, you mentioned falafel before, but what it made me think of, I was thinking about this with music, because one of the classic, it's become sort of an anecdote of war within the peace building community. I'm not sure if it actually happened specifically on one side, and I see Stephen nodding his head, knows where I'm going with this. I believe it's possible it was maybe a Seeds of Peace summer camp in the first years there, and there was an effort to bring the campus together, and the idea was, let's have cultural night. We'll share elements of our own culture with each other, and this will be a great bonding experience. We'll come away from the dialogue, it'll be a chance to let loose. And you had quite the controversy when the Israeli campus came and said, look, here's our falafel, here's our hummus, and the Palestinians say, wait a second, that's not yours, that's ours. Right? And it actually, so it's big and amusing, but behind that is some of what this gentleman has raised. I think there's something about cultural appropriation sometimes, or ownership of culture that people feel very strongly about, and yet you've spoken a lot and shown to me tonight about fusion and the power of fusing those sounds together and the bridging power that comes from that. And so again, is this something unique about music? Is it about your approach? I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Fusion without confusion. Actually, it's such an important question. I almost I can't give a brief answer, but I'll do my best. Because it's a fundamental. No, I'll open it up, because there were times, not so much recently, when I would feel that the balance between what we do is very delicate. And it could be delicate, you're absolutely right. Sometimes I felt, okay, we're doing a Jewish melody, and Hanna, may I do that? It's okay, we're not going to fight on stage, at least not in front of you, but I was feeling, okay, Hanna is Arabizing it. And it's like, I felt, no, it's not right. This was early on, when we
wanted to Ashkenazi.
Oh, Sephardic crisis.
I was thinking of the Arab Jews.
I know. The Arab Jews. Actually, I'm a Sephardic Jew, so I should be closer. But it does go into what we do. Yes, and it goes probably both ways, and sometimes it's a delicate balance. I guess the only way to do this successfully is to be able to be open enough and comfortable enough with your own identity and understand that identities you have a core, but everyone has a core. So it's not one is right and one is wrong. I can listen to an Arabic melody and cry because it's so deep, because it's so beautiful, because it enhances who I am, because it's opened something deeper in me, because it makes me a better person, a better artist, a better performer, and I will add it. Whether it's part of my identity or not almost becomes secondary. So it's not an issue. I've gone through periods when I practiced Zen Buddhism. So with that. And then I read The Jew of the Lotus right after, just because, the Jewish Guild, so you have to read The Jew of the Lotus. And then I realized it on a deeper level, and then I read the Kabbalah, and I realized that mystical Judaism and Buddhism have so many similarities, and it goes back to something I believe, that underneath we connect. a lot more than on the surface. So rituals are important and part of our identity. However, what we do maybe goes underneath. We find it's like water.
Yeah.
Water travels underneath. And that's the connection that is made.
This is actually, great. And, the only thing I could say, from, my end, I mean, if, there is, there is this joke in, for a principal in Tarshiha, like they always say, when he stands in front of students and he says, I'm speaking to you with a classical Arabic, waqfu shurut shurut, stand. Now shurut is a Hebrew word. Shurut shurut. So, there is like almost in every few words, like Hebrew has, it's very much, there is a lot of mixing, in the language. There are some words that I actually didn't know them in Arabic, in classical Arabic. It's just because we just came to know them through, these Hebrew words. And, this is what I mean by, that sort of like friction that's happening. I mean, you cannot be living in Israel, in the Middle East, and in that Israel, in this country that is like so open to all the other cultures from around it, our culture, and not be sort of like open to that, sort of like media outlet, of Kulthum and Abdul Wahab and the new generation of singers, and at the same time, watch Maccabi Haifa on a Saturday night, or watch Maccabi, well, I like Maccabi Haifa. But you will see that it's very much part of the culture. You go to different restaurants. You go to Tel Aviv or Haifa. You go to universities. You meet students. You constantly have to appropriate new sort of like conditions. That is it gonna threaten your culture? Well, I think, that is, if we look at identity over time, identity labels have shifted, but the essence has been pretty much the same. It has always been there, and it has always absorbed from around it. Now, of course, what used to be Muslim in the golden age of Islam, which is Andalus, later, the Arabists and the Pan-Arabists, changed the entire paradigm. So a lot of poets found themselves on the margins and did not fit that narrative. So now, somebody like, Rumi, whom used to be very essential to the Islamic culture, is now, became peripheral to the Arab nationalism. And instead, they started this entire new culture. I didn't want to go through history, but what I need to say is these identity and the politics of identity labeling has really done, magic in segregating. Even for myself, I have to admit it. The first paper I wrote was about the different identity labels that I was asked, or I was told to say, and as far as representation, and that I came under, from Galilean to Arab 48 to Arab Israeli to Palestinian Israeli to Aramean to so there is at least like 10. But at the end of the day, the essence of who I am did not change. It's just the labels. Sometimes I use it maybe to go through security check easier, or but that's what I mean by at the end, when you say like, am I being threatened or the culture? No, at the end of the day, I think it's only enhancing what I can do.
And I would like to commend JCC for opening your doors, to bringing Hanna and Hafez here.
Certainly.
And to bringing this to you. And I hope that what we did today gives you maybe something new to each and every one of you. You can take, and maybe something that could expand your possibilities to take to build the bridges farther.